Hello everyone, this is Janice Goldschmidt again. In my last video I presented 10 simple activities for involving individuals in food preparation activities. So in the next series of videos we're going to break all of those 10 activities down and give you some concrete suggestions for how you can draw individuals into these various activities and how you can support them most appropriately. And this first video will deal with topic number 1 in the previous video, so we're going to be looking at hand washing. And I'm going to offer 3 strategies for promoting effective hand washing. Hand washing is, of course, the single best way to prevent foodborne illness. So it's a very important cooking or food-based activity. But in today's climate, it's also very important for protecting our personal health and help public health professionals, including myself, advocate hand washing and avoiding touching your face as the single best things we can do to prevent getting ill in the current climate. Okay, so we're going to be looking at some various strategies for how you can draw in individuals with both cognitive and motor impairment into more effective hand washing. So let's continue onward. So there are a lot of different ways that people approach hand washing. This is a poster we keep posted in the 9055 Teaching Kitchen. But basically it's just a matter about making sure that you cover all the various geographical bases on the hand and that you do it for a long enough time. Professional medical specialists say that about 20 seconds is the time to wash your hands, and that is actually a long time. 20 seconds is about as long as it takes to sing Happy Birthday or the ABC song. And in the previous video, I promoted the use of the birthday song because everyone knows it. The problem, of course, with the birthday song is that after you sing it, a lot of people think they're going to get cake. So another way to approach it is you're going to sing as long as the ABC song. There are other ways as well, which we'll talk about as we get into the various strategies, but you just need to get make sure that you have a sense of time when you're working with someone on developing hand washing skills. And as well as making sure that you cover all of the hand. We sometimes take shortcuts because we're human beings. So let's take a look. Let's move on. The number one thing to be aware of when you're working with someone on the development of hand washing skills is that hand washing is a sensory experience. And to get people to do it more often, it has to be somewhat pleasurable, not just perfunctory. And there's 3 basic components, actually 4, but we're going to focus on 3 here, and we'll talk about the 4th later. So there's 3 basic components we need to emphasize. The first is hand washing in the type of water. Now, typically, the most popular way to do hand washing is in warm water. A lot of individuals find that to be the most pleasurable. However, individuals with autism often have atypical sensory processing. So some individuals are likely to find cold water, some may even find hot water. We need to go with the individual's personal preference. How hot is too hot? We don't want burns, of course. It may be a little too hot for our preference and to go at it long, but as long as they're not getting burned and you don't think there's any harm being done, you can let them determine the temperature of the water. So if they're verbal, they can actually tell you straight up, that's good, that's bad. If they're not verbal, you can encourage them to sort of set it. And to a certain extent, they're going to tell us, right, the way they respond to the hand washing. If they are much more inclined to participate when the water is at this temperature, then you kind of get a sense. So first sensory aspect is the temperature of the water, whatever the client's sensory preference. The second aspect is the soap. And so when we talk about sensories, there's lots. There's the sight of it. There's the smell of it. There's the touch of it. We certainly don't want to go after the taste of it. But those are there are several aspects of soap that we can involve in the sensory systems. Soaps come in liquid and in bar. Either one is fine. There's also antibiotic soaps. We're not preparing surgeons for surgery here. So as long as it's a basic soap, I like a soap that lathers up really well. I think it's very effective. Any of the liquid soaps typically do. Most of the bar soaps, some of the designer bar soaps don't lather up as well. So I don't like to go with those in for teaching. For my own personal use, sure, I'll use them in my guest bathroom, but I don't like to teach with them. I want a lot of lather. It's the most effective way to teach the idea of cleanliness. And then it's really going with what do they prefer in terms of smelling things. We all have that. If you were to go into the grocery store and look at the soap scents that are available, what would you gear toward? There's one called cucumber. I like anything with apricot. Some people prefer, berry, vanilla. Some people don't want any scent at all. It's going to be the individual sensory preference. Again, we are in we have to go with the individual's preference, but we are in a time when oftentimes cleaning supplies are very, very limited. So this one may be the one which is where we don't really have that much choice. However, look around to the residents, see what's available, and give them a choice if you can. So we have the temperature of the water, we have the feel and the scent of the soap. And the last thing is that when we're done, we want that fluffy towel experience, assuming that they find that pleasurable. If they don't, then maybe they want something very straightforward without a lot of that soft, cushy feel. A regular bath towel is nice, but there's these new chenille towels. I have used them. They give an incredible sensory experience. It will not be pleasurable to all of the individuals, but to some. So we're going to give the individual as many choices as possible in these three sensory aspects: the temperature of the water, the scent and the feel of the soap, and the type of towel to dry off with. So once we accept hand washing as a sensory-based activity, then we need a strategy for actually teaching it effectively. And the first strategy is going to be the Simon Says strategy, which is essentially modeling. Simon says do this, Simon says do that. And basically what we're going to do here is you're going to model it, you're going to hand wash, and ask them to copy you, imitate you. Now it should be visual, they should see you doing it, but it should also be verbal, and you should say, do this, make sure you touch the tips of your fingers. Look, I'm on the back of my hand. We're going to look at a video here in just a moment, but make sure you're using sight, that they're seeing you do these motions and activities, and that you're also verbally prompting them as well during the modeling. So let's look at what it would look like when you're modeling them. All right, I'm working with a client here. We're going to learn to wash hands. I'm getting the warm water on, and we're going to get water on first. Our hands are wet. Turn that soap over and over and over in our hands until we work up some lather, and now we can get going. So we're going to wash our wrists. We're going to wash each finger individually. Make sure each finger is clean. Back of the hands, very important. Palm of the hands. Now between the fingers, we switch to the other hand. Wash the wrist. Wash the back of the hand. Don't forget the palm. Now we're going to do each finger again. Look at all the lather we have going here. Between the fingers. One more time, over and over and over. Go ahead, we're going to rinse it off absolutely, completely. Turn off the water. Our hands are rinsed clean, but they're wet. And now, with our wet hands, we reach for a nice, big, fluffy towel for that last, bit of sensory experience. And now we have the cleanest hands in the entire world. Okay, so in that demo, I talked through it to the individual that I was teaching. But another way, of course, is to use music. When we talk about a sensory experience, hearing is another one of those sensory processing things that is tremendously pleasurable to most of the individuals that we support. So one way is to sing through it, and in the last video I did the birthday song. The other one, of course, is the alphabet song, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc., etc. But I'm going to make another suggestion to you that the individual might enjoy a lot, and that is to use a very slow kind of very calming music. to help them through the activity. Once they understand the basic motion, of the geography of the hand and how long and the sensory aspect of it, they might enjoy having some sort of a background, a soundtrack, if you will, to the activity. So we're going to look at that demo again, and this time we're going to look at it with a soundtrack to it, and see if you think that might help support the individual in the hand washing activity. Assuming that the individual likes the soundtrack that you've provided, you can see how that would be an even more pleasurable activity. So making it something that they'd be more willing to participate in. So strategy number 1 was to model the activity for them, making sure that you demonstrated an effective technique at the right amount of time. Strategy 2 is going to be just doing a hand over hand. So the key here is you're going to have to do the exact same thing, but you're going to have to sort of guide them through it using your hands. Now, 2 things. First of all, this can be highly pleasurable as another sensory-based aspect because you're going to be essentially massaging it because you're cleaning it. Some individuals will not find that pleasurable, and so this will not be an effective technique for them. But a lot of individuals will, especially if it's gentle. If it's a gentle kind of motion on the hands. So, follow their lead, and they will communicate in some way, whether they like the experience or not. Some individuals, some staff are concerned that maybe there's a safety component in washing someone else's hands. You'll be lathering up at the same time, so even if their hands are dirty, you will come out of this just fine, so don't worry about that. So I'm not going to show a video of that. I didn't have a model to use. Conrad was not willing to participate today. But basically it's just the same idea. You'll model through, you'll wash all the different parts, but hand over hand with them in the right amount of time. You can use a soundtrack. The first couple of times I would use the coaching with your voice, explaining what you're doing and what finger and all the suds and where you're hitting all parts of the hand, including the wrist. And then you can move on and out a soundtrack if appropriate. So that is strategy number 2, basically just moving them through it. Okay, so what is strategy number 3? Strategy number 3 will be essentially the bathtub strategy. And that is where we basically put their hands in a large bowl of water, warm water, and hope that they find the experience pleasurable enough to keep them in there a while. So these are going to be extremely tactile sensitive individuals who cannot have someone rubbing their hands or doing that motion, but will keep the hands in the water if they have something to do and they find the overall experience positive. So a big bowl, I'll show, or a tub, warm water presumably, but whatever the individual prefers. Soapy, so now you're going to want to use a liquid soap here, make it very nice and soapy, and then toys. I use measuring cups, anything that can pour. A lot of people like to pour out things. You could even put a rubber ducky in there if you want. And this is an activity, right now we have plenty of time. Typically we don't have we can't give an individual, put aside a large portion of the day for hand washing. But this is one of those times when we can certainly do that, setting them up to just sort of splash in this big tub of water. And if it's soapy enough and warm enough and they find it pleasurable enough, they will come out with their hands clean. So let's take a look at a visual of that. Okay, so this look a big tub of hot, warm, soapy water, and we got things to fill and pour and maybe play around. And you can coach them a little bit by, pouring some of the water over them, encouraging them to put their hands in, and just keeping their hands in there and being involved in it. The longer they stay in that water, the cleaner their hands are going to become just quite passively. Okay. So we are trying to wash our hands a lot these days, and that means that we are washing away a lot of the natural oils. So we might end up with dry, cracked hands, and that actually makes our hands more vulnerable to bacteria and viruses. So it is very important to complete the hand washing procedure with some body lotion or hand moisturizer. And again, this is another sensory choice that the individual can participate in. There's a lot of really nice lotions and potions with lots of different smells and feels, and you can experiment with that. We have a choice of temperature, we have a choice of the type and the smell of the soap, the type of towel, and then we complete it with some sort of lotion to make sure that the hands in the hand washing process are not dry. Of course, we can't wash our hands when we're out and about, when doing errands and going to That's a Wrap or wherever we need to go. Typically, we would always say, use hand sanitizer. And of course, there isn't enough today, and supplies are very low. If you can use hand sanitizer after going out in the community, that is fine. Another strategy that is probably more practical at the moment is when you're out and about picking up a package at the door or picking up something from the store or whatever, you can wear these food service gloves. Food service gloves are easy to get on. They're very easy to get on the clients because they're very large. They'll protect the hand while you're handling something, and then as soon as you've completed the task, you can just simply throw them away, peel them off and throw them away. So that is one way to handle the lack of hand sanitizer. If hand sanitizer does become available, feel free to use it. But remember, soap and water is actually considered more effective. So don't feel that you have to have hand sanitizer to keep you and the people that you support healthy. And there I am. If you have any questions about the video you just saw, if you have any concerns, or certainly if you have any ideas or suggestions, please feel free to write me. There's my contact information. If there's something you'd like to see in future videos, or if there's something that I did not address that you think is important, please let me know, and I'll be sure to get back to you. If there's any way I can support you in your position and with the individuals that you are working with, also let me know. And I'll look for you in the next video in this series.